Right guys, I just want to show you the difference between apertures and what a big difference a large aperture has versus a small one. So as you can see, at 2.8 here at ISO 1000 on the EOS R6, I'm getting a 1600 shutter speed. So if we drop that down to f4, suddenly a massive difference to 800th of a second. So we've lost a thousandth of a shutter speed there. Let's bring it down to 5.6. That drops down to 400th of a second. Let's go to f8, 200th of a second. And I want to show the difference between f11, you know, those f11 lenses I showed you, versus having a 2.8 aperture. So we're getting a shutter speed of around 125th of a second versus 2.8, which is nearly 2000th of a second depending on the light. So, you know, even a 5.6 lens versus f11 is a massive difference. So, you know, 500th of a second, if we go back to f11, 125th a second. So in effect we're getting at least 3 stops of increase of light gathering capability versus the f11 lens. This is why these f11 lenses are useless on cloudy days. You won't get fast action pictures using those lenses unless you're ramping your ISO really high. So to give you an example, let's just ramp the ISO up to, these cameras can go quite high, so let's say let's go to 5000 or 5000 ISO. So we have to go up to 5000 ISO to get anywhere near what a 5.6 aperture would give us. So that we've got 640th of a second at f11. Now watch what happens if I stay at ISO and bring it down to 5.6. 2500, massive difference there. And let's see what the difference would be if we had an f4 lens, for example a 500 f4, 5000th of a second at ISO 5000. And for argument's sake, let's try a 2.8, which will literally go to the max. There you go, we're maxed out, because most cameras will max out at 8,000ths of a second. Some cameras will go to 16,000ths of a second. But I just wanted to show you the difference in terms of shutter speed and ISO, in terms of lenses. So go back to f11, that's what we would have in terms of the RF600 and RF800, and we'd be at 640th of a second. That would not be fast enough to freeze action. It's recommended between 1200 and 2000 of a second is what you need to freeze action. So in order to achieve that, we would need to be at least f8. So you'd probably be able to get away with the RF 100 to 400 that goes to f8, and that should manage at ISO 5000. I won't want to go much more above 5000 ISO, to be honest with you, because then you start seeing noise in your image. Yes, these cameras can go up to 12,800 quite easily, and let's see what that effect would be if we do ramp the ISO up to what I would consider the maximum I'd want to go to on these cameras. So let's start again. So let's go to 2.8, we're maxed out. It's blowing the image out actually, so 2.8 is probably a bit too much in terms of an aperture. So let's just go to f4. What are we getting at f4? f4 we're getting we're getting 8,000ths of a second. So let's go to 5.6, see if that changes anything, and it does. So we're probably getting close between the max at 6,400 shutter speed there. That would be more than enough to freeze action. Let's see, what can we get to? f8. f8 we'd freeze action quite easily at 12,800 ISO. F11, if we have F11 lens, we're at the 2000th mark to freeze action. That would be acceptable. So you're going to deal with a lot of noise when you're dealing with these F11 lenses. I just wanted to talk about it so you can see where you have to go in terms of freeze action on the F11 lenses. That's why there's a lot of criticism of them being F11. Hope this was helpful.